I never fucked anybody over in my life. Didn't have it coming to me. You got that? All I have in this world is my balls and my word. And I don't break them for no one. You understand?
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
I work for Kaiser Soze.
Tu me déçois énormément.
I work for Kaiser Soze.
Je suis colère, les enfants, je suis colère.
Hello, aviators, and welcome to Buzzworthy, the movie drinking game podcast. And I am your host, Jim. And as you could tell by the title of the episode you just clicked on, today I'm going to be doing Top Gun. And I chose Top Gun for a couple of different reasons, which I'll get to in a minute. But first, I want to go over the rules for Top Gun. Now, these first sets of rules, you're going to want to take a drink every time these events happen. So the first rule, someone is referred to by their real name. For example, someone says Pete Mitchell instead of Maverick, or Tom Kazansky instead of Iceman. The second rule, someone just smiles in response to someone else. Third rule, someone is sweating uncontrollably. You're probably going to want a full beer for that one. The fourth rule, someone uses military lingo in casual conversation. Fifth rule, Maverick breaks the rules. Again, probably a full beer thing there too. Sixth rule, you see a faceless enemy pilot. Seventh rule, for keeping up foreign relations. And you know what that means. Eighth rule, someone is wearing sunglasses indoors. And the ninth and final rule, and for drink every time, is every time you hear a sexual innuendo. Now for the special one-off rules, you're going to want to finish your drink during the volleyball scene. And then the last one, of course, take a shot for Goose. Now, I have Top Gun, the menu pulled up and everything on my 4K here. So, you know, if you're ready, I am hitting play now. Everything's loading. And so what I want to do while it's loading is go over what I'll be drinking today. And Top Gun isn't my favorite movie per se, but I did want to start off with my favorite beer, which is Juicy Jack from Santan Brewing Company here in Chandler, Arizona. It's a juicy, hazy IPA, which is kind of like my favorite thing now. And it seems to be the thing going on. And real quick, we're at 8 seconds now on the movie here. So if you want to make sure that you're all queued up. So a little bit about Juicy Jack. Again, it's a hazy IPA. And here's the description from Santan. This juicy hazy IPA showcases mosaic and cashmere hops, which explode with aromas of peach, guava, and tangerine. Fruity and juicy, a generous amount of oats are added to give the Juicy Jack a rich, full-bodied flavor. It's got 6.5% alcohol by volume, 37 IBUs. It's very delicious. Again, my favorite beer. And now we're at the description of the Top Gun school here. And if I may, and I'm just going to take an inaugural sip because that's what I want to do. Oh, Top Gun, there we go. And now that I've taken a drink, you know, for my shot here, I also have something from Santan, the Sacred Stave, American single malt whiskey. They brew it right there on site in small batches. And if you're ever in town, I do recommend going on their brewery tour there. It's very neat, very informative. And again, like I mentioned earlier, you know, I wanted to do Top Gun for a couple of reasons. Number one, and movie drinking games have been around forever, I'm sure. But Top Gun was the first movie that I ever remember seeing a list of drinking rules for a drinking game. And I never played anything. I always thought it would be fun to play with a bunch of people. But, you know, life happens and you can't always do that. And now we're older and it's you kind of got to do things by yourself now because people have jobs and families and all that stuff. And the second thing is I'm smart. This episode is coming out, today if you're listening to it on May 27th, which is also the release of the sequel, Top Gun Maverick, which is 30 years later, which isn't the worst sequel. A lot of people will make fun of Avatar for coming out with a sequel 13 years later, but now here we are 35 years later, and now we're getting a sequel to Top Gun, the seminal 1986 classic. And the boner-inducing danger zone of the montage of jets taking off the Harrier, always a classic. I'm going to take another sip. I always thought it's funny how in the 80s you have this, especially like from Michael Bay or Tony Scott, especially like this sepia toned half framed thing of the world that always makes me feel like everything was so hot all the time, like, which is probably why they're sweating all the time and why we'll be drinking while they're sweating. And Top Gun's one of those movies too. It's cool that they got the cooperation and approval of the military, because otherwise I don't know that it would have had the same effect. They gave them this unprecedented access of putting cameras on planes and actors in planes, things like that. And to mention Michael Bay again, he seems to have a lot of that cooperation from the military. Oh, someone's sweating uncontrollably. Got to take a drink. Do I do it every time I see someone sweating uncontrollably? Probably. So I'm going to be drinking a lot. Like I said, make sure you got yourself a full beer there. And I'm recording this podcast from the comfort of my bed because I will probably be drunk by the end of this, and I don't want to be sitting up in a studio or anything. So I have my Maui Brewing Company ice bag here next to me full of beer, and my couch console drink and snack holder ready to go with my favorite drinks and snacks and everything like that. So I'm not spilling anything on our expensive bed. And I just took another drink anyway, just because. And I intended this podcast to, for you to play along and for you to listen to it as you're watching the movie, almost like an audio commentary. Most movie discs come with some sort of audio commentary anyway, but I remember, when Clerks 2 came out, Kevin Smith recorded one that you could download onto your iPod, rest in peace, and then go and see the movie and listen to it while you're watching it. So that's kind of, the idea behind this. So you'll hear some dead spots, but it's just because I'm engrossed in the movie. And you will too. So I hope, you are... Oh, there's a faceless enemy pilot. Got to take a drink. So I hope you're doing the same thing and having fun with some friends maybe, watching these awesome flicks. And yeah. Are those guys sweating profusely? It looked like, so I better take a drink. Oh, he definitely is. That's a double drink. Oh, sweaty faces. I just took a long drink because that was a longer scene, longer cut. Oh, faceless enemy pilot. He's not quite sweating, but that guy is. Maybe having sweaty faces or bodies was not a good idea. I don't know if I have enough beer. He's kind of sweating. That deserves a drink. So if you're listening to this podcast years from now because you just discovered it and you're now catching up, thank you for listening. But, you know, I don't know if you remember this, but at the beginning of 2020, we were, as a species and as a planet here, we're enthralled in a pandemic, which probably is never going away at this point. But what I find interesting and faceless enemy pilot and keeping up foreign relations. Another faceless enemy pilot. And another one. Anyway, what I find interesting is how it disrupted the entertainment industry, obviously beyond the, theaters closing and things like that. You know, some of these newer releases where they're doing special features, they're recorded through Zoom calls and whatnot. But, for example, in Top Gun here, I bought this on 4K probably at the beginning of 2020, I would imagine, maybe 2019. I don't remember when this came out, but on the disc here, there is a feature highlighting the new Top Gun Maverick, and now we are 2 years later, and just now releasing this movie. It got delayed so many times, and I just think that's kind of an interesting little facet of history that we'll someday forget or remember when we're watching old things and being like, why are these sweaty faces? Probably. There's a drink. And there's a sweaty face too. Another one. And yeah, I don't remember where I was going, but watching special features of wondering why people are recording them in their living rooms with headphones on instead of in front of a green screen and a director's chair. I don't know. Just weird things that pop into my head. That's technically Maverick breaking the rules, so I'm going to take a drink. And sweaty faces. And that is already my first beer. And we're 13 so minutes into this thing. So I'm going to reach over to my Maui Brewery Company ice chest bag here. Crack open a fresh one. And if I may. Just so you know that I'm actually drinking with you here. I don't want you to think that those fresh brewskis being cracked open were sound effects or anything. There's a sweaty face. Sweating uncontrollably. Everyone's going to sweat uncontrollably in this, even if you're just walking down the street. Sweaty face. Better take a drink. Another one. That was probably one more too. He's sweating uncontrollably for sure, probably because of just what he went through. Do I drink? Should I drink every time I see one? Or is it just when they first come on? I'll try to keep up. I'll drink another one. There's another one too. So I'll do a double one. Yeah, they're definitely sweating uncontrollably. Was that a sexual innuendo? Probably. So I should probably take a drink. He's sweating uncontrollably for sure. This is going to be the death of me. He's definitely sweating uncontrollably. Do they spray them down? Or were the 80s just so fucking hot that everyone was sweating? Look at his head. It's like you could see yourself in it. He's definitely sweating uncontrollably. They all are. You know, we should probably drink every time we hear Danger Zone too. So I'm going to take a drink. You know, I remember when I was little, there was a restaurant over by our hometown, and I always thought it was great that it was a Top Gun reference, but it was called I don't remember. Bottoms Up or something. Top Bottoms. Anyway, the drink coaster was a lady in a navy coat that Maverick kind of wears when he's riding his motorcycle there. And she was not wearing any pants, which I thought was great as a child. No one's really sweating in this thing, though, so maybe they have the air on? When was air conditioning invented? I don't know. Oh, that was a sexual innuendo, but it was more straightforward, but I'm going to drink anyway. You know, in the special features of this, there's a very long one that's pretty in depth. It's even longer than the movie. It's like 2.5 hours. But they talk about, you know, because they got a Navy pilot, you know, liaison, if you will, to kind of help with realism and things like that, and how things actually go. And this is a big problem that I have with movies and people in general, how they always say, well, it's not historically accurate. Well, it's a fucking movie. You know what I mean? Like, have you ever seen real life? It's boring most of the time. So you're going to have to take artistic freedom there. And they were talking to one of the writers, I believe, and the liaison would come in and be like, you know, that's not how things really go. And this guy said, you know, which I had never thought of before. I've had the idea, but never could articulate it. But he said, never sacrifice a good story for the truth. Like, real life is boring, so you're gonna have to take fucking, you know, artistic license with things. So people who sit there and like, you know, pick apart historical movies and things like that, like, sit down. No one cares. This isn't a documentary where I'm supposed to be telling the truth or whatever the case. It's a goddamn movie about fighter pilots starring Tom Hanks. So kiss my buns is what I'm trying to say when it comes to stuff like that, I guess. And I don't know where I'm going with that, but I'm already 1.5 beers deep and we're only 20 minutes into this. So here we are. And speaking of second place, what I love about this movie, and I've only realized this last time watching it, is Maverick is not the best at the beginning nor the end. Like, they just said Cougar was number one. They're number two. Like, I kind of like that. Like, it's not something you really think about when you watch this movie, because you're like, you know, Maverick is the best because he's the main character, but it's really not the case. And I'm probably missing rules here. You're probably like, what the fuck? This guy's not drinking when someone smiles or something. But it's hard to keep up with all of this, especially in this movie. I didn't realize. I guess Maverick was kind of smiling. Was Iceman smiling right there? I'm going to take a drink, I guess. Sunglasses indoors. That's not really innuendo, but it is sexual. Oh, there was two. Poor Val Kilmer. I like him. Oh, he just smiled. Really, he didn't answer anything, so that's a drink. Carnal knowledge. She has lost it, Goose. So do I. Oh, sunglasses indoors. Two of them right there. It's a pretty long saying, so I'm going to take another drink because they're still wearing sunglasses. That guy just walked in. There is that actual uh, Navy pilot liaison guy that helped them with the movie there. He's kind of smiling there in just response to someone else, so that deserves a drink. Too long sexual innuendo. And this is one of those scenes where I talk about, when I was mentioning earlier, never let the truth get in the way of a good, movie. This was all set up without, the Navy's approval, because normally you would have this in a classroom like they were earlier. So why they did both, I don't know, but fuck it. It makes a good story. It looks cool. They're technically outdoors with the sunglasses there, so no drinks there, guys. Thank gosh. I was inverted. That's kind of a sexual innuendo too. I was inverted, so that deserves a drink. I have a great Polaroid of it. He's mentioning the foreign relations, so that probably deserves a drink too. The hard deck. Is that a sexual innuendo? Probably. 69. Nice. You know, this movie would have not looked the same if they hadn't had the cooperation of the Navy. Like, could you imagine just rando planes, like, just flying around? You know, there's a similar story for Black Hawk Down, directed by Tony Scott's brother, a little-known director called Ridley Scott. When he was making Black Hawk Down, they were going to use the Huey helicopters because they're easily accessible and they're, you know, a little bit outdated and they can get them easily, but it wouldn't have looked the same because you're calling it a Black Hawk helicopter, and it's clearly not that a normal person like myself would know, but you know, it wouldn't look the same. You're just painting these Huey helicopters black, but then they got the cooperation of the military, and they were able to use actual Black Hawks. So, you know, just something like that it really helps, like, sell the believability of these. And I don't know if they did it in this movie, but in the new one, like, they would actually, you know, put the actors in the planes and put a camera in there with them, so they're actually acting as they're flying around like this. And you can see clearly, like, right there, that's obviously a camera in a plane. So, like, it's not green screen or blue screen or, you know, the projected thing like they do sometimes back, you know, way back then. But at least in the new one, like, I know for sure that they put cameras in the plane and the actors are actually having to act while they're up there in the air. Which, you know, Tom Cruise is this, as much as he's weird as shit, like, the dude just fucking loves movies. Like, he loves making them, and he loves making them authentic, if you will. I think the argument of practical versus CGI, you know, is a little bit overblown, but, you know, and there's a big debate right now on method acting and how ridiculous it is, which in most cases it is, but, you know, Tom Hanks, or it's not Tom Hanks, that would be a way different movie if Tom Hanks was in this movie, but Tom Cruise, you know, if you want to consider this method acting, like, this is the method acting I can get behind because, pattern is full, Ghost Rider. You know, you give this authentic performance because that's actually what you're doing. You're not pretending to be a pilot. You're not pretending to be a seamstress. You're not pretending to be a crime lord. Oh, Maverick just broke the rules. Take a drink. You know, they went through flight school. All the actors did, so they, or at least a truncated version of it, to kind of know what you know, what it feels like to be, at least a taste of it, what these pilots go through in order to be the best. Oh, sunglasses indoors. So that's the kind of method acting I can get behind, if you can call it that, which I think you can. So, and on that note, I need another beer. Oh, that's, he said a name too. But first, take a drink because he just said Kazansky. I'm going to just put a little bit of beer on me. Are they sweating or are they just damp because it's a locker room? I don't know about you, but I'm going to call it damp because We're 35 minutes into it, and I'm on my third beer. That was a sexual innuendo, though. That was too. I mean, they're sweating right there, but it's totally within their control. So I'm gonna pass on that one, guys. I guess I missed a drink there when Maverick went below the hard deck, so that's a posthumous drink right here. Is that why everyone's sweating? Because all they have are fans? Like, I don't know. I don't need to. I have a phone right here, but I'm not going to Google it. Like, why were the 80s so hot? I live in the fucking desert, and I could not, I don't know if I could survive back then. I don't know if that was a name reference, because we really don't know his dad's call sign. But he was a pilot, so sure, let's drink. You know, yes, that is military lingo there, but it's not really casual conversation. They're at work, so I think that's an acceptable pass for a drink. Unless you want to drink, you know, you go hardcore mode. We're all in at this point. And another thing, like, speaking of military lingo, like, this is one of those movies that treats the audience member smarter than they are. I don't know what a fucking role reversal is. It's pretty self-explanatory, I think, probably. But they never, like, it treats everything as absolute. And they never explain to you what those terms mean, because it's not integral. It's not important to the story to know what those terms mean, I guess. Like, you see it in action and they don't really need to, oh fuck, here we go, volleyball. So you know what that means? Finish your drink. Wait, oh god, this is a full one too, son of a bitch. Plus everyone's fucking sweating too, so oh my god, I'm gonna explode. Oh yeah, slap that handbarrel. How are you guys doing on your beers? I don't know if I can do it. That's a good high five. If you can pull that high five off, good for fucking you. And why is Goose the only one wearing a shirt? Like, was he not in shape? I probably would be wearing a shirt too, but I'm just saying. Gotta protect your skin from the sun. He is a doctor after all. That's a ER joke for you. Did you guys finish your drink? Because you're supposed to. Those are the rules. See, there's that half sepia tone again. It's just a thing in the 80s, I guess. Or early 90s. Because you see it a lot in Bad Boys as well. Speaking of Michael Bay again. Michael Bay and Tony I was about to say Tony Stark. Tony Scott have a lot in common when it comes to stuff like this. Like, it's probably summertime and the fucking doors are open. No, dude, she wants to smell your stink. Like, this is one of those movies that does a full circle when it comes to poignancy, because back in '86, we're still in the midst of the Cold War. MiGs, Russia is our enemy, and now here we are, 2022, and it's still pretty much the same thing. And maybe you'll never get to hear this because Russia has wiped us all out, but hopefully not. I would like to continue watching movies and drinking beer, separate or together. Did he ever take a shower? There's that mentioning that he's second best again. Like, I do think that's kind of interesting. Like, especially for a movie of this time, like someone who's not tip-top shape, you know, in a time when Commando and Predator are coming out, and these dudes are obviously the best at what they do. This guy's, he wants to be the best, but he's just always, he's not. And I respect that about this movie, and he never is in this movie, you know, even though at the end, spoiler alert, you know, he is kick-ass, and they pick him to, you know, go fight the bad guys. Like, yeah, you need to go take a shower, dude. You stink. Slider doesn't stink. Maverick stinks. But he leaves? I would have taken a shower at her place. That was one long shower because now she's there. Their love story in this, I'm sorry, is the weirdest fucking thing. It totally detracts from everything. How many showers is this guy going to take? I suppose in the 80s with no air conditioning, you're going to have to take a lot of showers, though. Especially with how many people sweat in this. Guys, I have to be honest with you. I don't even remember the rules at this point. Has anyone been wearing sunglasses indoors? Has Maverick broken the rules lately? Has anyone referred to anyone by their real names? Is Charlie even her real name? I don't even know. I probably should have been drinking every time I said Charlie, because I think he said earlier call sign Charlie. That's the quickest elevator door I've ever seen. I feel like their love story is like the entire middle of the movie, and then it's never touched on again. Sunglasses indoors. I remember the rule. You couldn't make that joke today. You know, nicknames are cool, but that would be so weird if your wife called you by your nickname all the time. Goose. Usually when people have nicknames, I still call them by their normal name. I'm just weird like that. Not on purpose. There's sunglasses indoors. Guys, I have to tell you, I broke the rules earlier because I did not finish my drink during the volleyball scene. If you did, I'm proud of you. But I cannot. I had In-N-Out before I started this because I thought, oh, I get some food in my belly, so I'm not, so there's something to soak up the beer. But now there's a zero room in my gut for anything. There's distension along my duodenum. Do I get to spit out some drink because he took his sunglasses off? Guys, you're gonna hear some burps too because I need to make room sometimes. Because again, I mean, I should be more into it, but I'm 3 beers deep in an hour almost. Not even an hour in the movie, just an hour in this podcast. And whew. Good for you, Mav. A funny story. I mean, it's not funny, haha, but so when we were kids, we used to go to San Diego like every summer with our parents, and we'd go see the sights and everything like that. And there was a tour where you could go around and see like different movie shooting sites, I think, or at least maybe it was just a tour of the city itself, and then they would take you by random shots like this. And my parents are like, we're not going to spend money on that, which I totally agree with. So they found out where everything was. And then so like we drove up this street where they just had this little drag race for some reason. And endangering everyone's lives just because she was like, I like you. And I didn't know what the fuck Top Gun was back then. That's how, I mean, like, so weird. There was an initial rule where every time you see someone in silhouette, you drink, and you would have had to like finish your drink on this scene right here. But yeah, my parents were like, this is the street where Tom Cruise raced up chasing Kelly McGillis, and I was like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I don't know if I've ever seen this movie at this point. If I have, I don't remember what's going on. And I don't know how you can make 2 songs last an entire movie. They look like birds right now. What? Passing food to each other. I don't know how you can make 2 songs, Danger Zone and this one, like last the entire movie, but they did it. And in case you're wondering, that wasn't a sexual innuendo. That was literally sex innuendo. So, no drinks there, guys. For speed. God, jets are so cool. This movie is literally 2 hours of a training session. Like, how you pull that off and make a good movie? That's a true sign of a craftsman right there. $110. No wonder everyone's sweating all the fucking time. I'm curious because I've seen extended, scenes of this. The Top Gun Maverick, the sequel coming out today, if you're listening to this, and hopefully, it's not one of those sequels 15 years later that just retreads what the original did, but with new people. And the original, I think the term today is legacy sequel, which, but I've heard those planes are huge. I've heard rumblings out of CinemaCon, which I did not go to this year. I have not been in like 10 years because the last time I went, it was an utter disaster. I will tell you that I got drunk on Paramount's dime and did not have a good time because of things and people that I was with there. But I've heard rumblings out of there that the new Top Gun Maverick is fantastic. And I've seen extended scenes from it. There was a little extended preview I saw in the theater a couple weeks ago, and it looks very good. The aerial acrobatics look tight, and they used a lot of the techniques that they did in this one, whereas what I mentioned earlier, putting the camera in with the actors in the plane so they get the authentic experience. So I got my fingers crossed that it'll be good, and I don't think. I think it's stupid and childish and immature and silly. And you don't know what you're talking about when you say things like, "Oh, it ruined the original." Like when you talk about the 2016 Ghostbusters. No, it didn't. You're a jackass, to put it simply. So I don't think that's a thing, but I think it will live up to its predecessor, based on what people are saying. So I have hopes, but I'm not like in love with this movie either. So doesn't have a high bar to reach, but Tom Cruise is always good. That director is good. You know, he did Tron Legacy, which is excellent. Far better than the original, in my opinion, for something similar where it comes out 30 years later, which I think is kind of fitting. Almost, you know, you direct a sequel to a movie that happened 30 years prior, and it kicks ass, and then now you're doing it again. But that guy's a good director anyway. He did Oblivion. He did Only the Brave, that firefighter movie with Josh Brolin that, you know, took place around here. So, and funny story about this restaurant too. I've actually eaten there. It's a barbecue joint down there in San Diego. It's for my friend's bachelor party. I don't remember too much. I'm sure it was good. I don't remember hating it, because I was probably already drunk. And then we went and had more drinks. And then a friend of mine, she rented a party bus. And then we went to Spearmint Rhino. And then they all went back to the hotel. And I went with her. But I don't remember a lot of that night. I know I drank a lot. So, but from what I remember, I don't remember hating the food. So I'm sure it was good. But I think it's still there down in downtown San Diego. So if you can, check it out, you know. And speaking of restaurants, I just remembered that restaurant that I mentioned earlier with the coasters is called Bottom Gun Cafe, which makes sense because, you know, it had the chick with the you know, with her booty hanging out, which I thought was interesting for a bar or restaurant back then. That was probably technically family friendly. Sunglasses indoors. He's riding without a helmet, which I don't know if that was the law back then in California, but it is now. So technically he's breaking the rules, so I'm going to take a drink for that. Speaking of breaking the rules, I'm going to probably do a posthumous drink here in a minute, because do you really think he rapped it earlier when he went and had carnal relations with the lady? I don't think so. So, taking a drink. Silhouettes again. You probably would have been drinking a lot if I had added that roll in. Again, Danger Zone. Like, how do you make 2 songs last 2 hours in the movie? I don't know, but I'm all here for it. That's all I can say. So look at that. That's not fake. Like, that's so cool that they were able to shoot real jets. Kazansky, real name. probably going to want to get your shot ready, which I'm going to do. Are you too close for missiles? Because last time I checked, this was an exercise, so everything goes, I think. Really, though, I feel like Iceman should feel the most guilty about Goose's death because, dude, shit or get off the pot. And then you do that, and now you're in his jet wash. Oh, and then they're going to go into a flat spin. Get your shots ready, folks. Like, are you in the desert or are you close to the sea? Because I don't know. I guess in a jet you can travel that pretty quickly. And, you know, what's interesting about this, you know, the Navy liaison was explaining how when you're in a flat spin like that, the pilot gets pushed towards the front because of the gravity of the spin, and then your co-pilot has to be in charge of making sure that the ejector seat gets pulled out. And because of that, I think there is 2 different ejector things, like one for the canopy, and because of the spin, the canopy doesn't fly away. So the co-pilot has to make sure that he pushes that away before he ejects everybody else. And clearly Goose didn't do that. But I think the order of guiltiness should go Iceman, Goose, Maverick, and that one. And Maverick is like a 1% guilt just because he was flying, but Goose clearly didn't do what he was supposed to do, and obviously Iceman was the catalyst for all this. But having said that, here's to you, Goose. Taking my shot. And I'm taking a beer chaser because I'm not a hard alcohol person at all. Whew. R.I.P. Goose. I mean, there's sunglasses indoors. Do you really need to take sunglasses to the shower with you? He's not wearing them, so I'm not taking a drink, but... Hey, I know that you saw your buddy's face smashed into itself in the cockpit, but I just want to let you know that he's dead. I've been in there too. One of our many trips to San Diego, how they weirdly let you on the base to go look at stuff. I think that's weird, and it's all old, which I don't care for. And again, it's always hot in the 80s. I don't know where I'm going with this. Goodbye, Charlie. I think that's the last we ever see of you or something. Here's some interesting headcanon to think about. After Top Gun, and clearly you have to disregard Top Gun Maverick maybe, but after Top Gun, Lieutenant Pete Maverick Mitchell, after the battle later on, gets fed up with flying and he goes to law school, becomes a lawyer, and then tries Jack Nicholson's character for the murder of a recruit or a Marine down in Guantanamo Bay. And then maybe if you want to factor in the sequel, then he's like, you know what? I don't want to be a lawyer anymore. I want to be a pilot. That's where my head's at. Boom, you got yourself a Top Gun trilogy. What I would like to know is, do pilots and co-pilots come up with their own nicknames? Because, like, in real life, if you come up with your own nickname, you're a jackass. Like, someone has to coin that for you. So do you just pick a name, call sign, when you join the Navy pilots? And do all pilots, like, do the Air Force have call signs? And do you have to pick them yourself? What if someone already else has that name, like an email address? Do you have to say Maverick01? Maverick PM for Pete Mitchell? That is a little bit of research I did not do. And as an aviator, are you required to wear aviators? What if you want to wear Ray-Bans or Oakleys? I think Oakleys are shit, but what if you wanted to wear that stuff? Are you required? Are they standard issue? I know it's a terrible joke, but here we are. You're listening to this. I should have also added a rule, like every time Val Kilmer sniffs, you have to take a drink. Because there was 2 right there. 3. God, he's so good. It's a shame what happened to him. Not just in his health-wise, but just with his career. I think after Batman Forever, it just kind of went downhill from there. He had some great turns and things like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, but after that, I don't know, man. Oh, she's back. I thought that she was gone for good. But there's a point where you never see her again. I'll have what he's having. Was this before or after that Meg Ryan movie? I mean, I don't think it's a literal homage to it, but I just think it's funny that she's also in this too. Another question I have in regards to buzzing the tower. You know, the guy up there in the tower says negative Ghost Rider, the pattern is full. Do you have your own call sign and then your plane has a call sign? Or are you just, like, where does Ghost Rider come from? It's a tight name, but, like, where does that come from? Do you have to name your plane as well? These are the important questions that I'm posing in this podcast. This is why this podcast is important. Oh, according to IMDb, Meg Ryan and Anthony Edwards became an item after the filming concluded. don't remember. When was the last time I took a drink for a rule? I don't remember. Was it Kazansky? I at this point, I'm not really even, what are the rules anymore? I have to keep glancing over at my list. They're not sweating, so I'm not going to take a drink. But he does have sunglasses on. Is he going to put them on indoors? We shall see. Ooh, did he put him on before he left? I don't know. Let's take a drink for it anyway. Oh, I forgot to close my ice bag last time, but luckily they're still cold. You know, bits of trivia like this are always interesting to me. And we were watching The Green Mile the other day, and clearly John Coffey, spelled like just like the drink, only spelled differently. He's supposed to be larger than life and huge. And when you cast tall actors like David Morse, who's 6'5", and then Michael Clark Duncan, who's also similar, but James Cromwell, who's taller than both of them, like, you have to do certain things to make him seem that way, like making Tom Hanks stand in a ditch or Michael Clark Duncan standing on a box or whatever. But bits of trivia like this for this type of movie, like, so according to IMDb, Tom Cruise is 3 inches shorter than Kelly McGinnis, which bothered Paramount greatly. To even up their heights, Cruise wore specialty cowboy boots that gave him a little height boost, while McGillis didn't wear any shoes at all during their scenes. Like, why does that matter? Who gives a fuck? You know what I mean? So what? She's taller than him. That's so weird. Like, that's an odd studio note. But what do I know? I mean, maybe I'm living in the future while everyone else is living in the past. Who knows? I get when it's important, like something like I just explained with The Green Mile. But in this, I mean, Tom Cruise is second best no matter what he does anyway, so why not make him second tallest? I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm not smart enough to articulate that, so take that how you will. That pool looks comfy. Why aren't they having this ceremony in the pool when it's 110 degrees outside? People will sweat their asses off indoors, but not outdoors. Be hard on the guy. That was a sexual innuendo, I think. So let's take a drink. I didn't quite make it to my mouth. That's the trophy you get. Oh, that guy was wearing Ray-Bans. Did he get fined by the Navy? So here's another interesting tidbit, which I don't know is accurate. You know, back then, who knows what the real catalyst is, and there's always different things. You know, like with Red Dawn and the PG-13 rating, or whatever that other Steven Spielberg movie that's credited with, I think it was Temple of Doom, but see, I recently discovered that Star Trek The Wrath of Khan was the reason for home video becoming so popular. But this, according to IMDb, again, this movie is credited with starting the home video industry. Originally, VHS tapes were priced at $100 upon the release, which is true. They were fucking expensive. And if you ever lost a Blockbuster videotape, you know. And if you're young enough to not know what a Blockbuster videotape is, you can Google it or whatever. And were sold mainly to video stores. This film was priced to own immediately upon release, made possible by Pepsi Cola buying ad space at the beginning of the tape. Since then, pricing VHS tapes to own right away became a common practice. But Paramount did that with The Wrath of Khan, which I think came out before this, so who's telling the truth? And he is definitely sweating profusely, so let's take a drink. He's still sweating profusely. Take another one. Like, is it cooler outdoors than it is indoors all the time? Like, why aren't people outdoors more? Or open a window. So here's another example of don't let the truth get in the way of a good movie that I mentioned at the beginning of this. And again, you can tell I'm reading through IMDb right now, but during a break in the filming of the hangar scene, a group of Navy officers being used as extras approached Tony Scott and complained about the unrealistic collection of patches on the flight suits of the actors. He replied, paraphrasing, "We're not making this movie for Navy fighter pilots. We're making it for Kansas wheat farmers who don't know the difference." Exactly. Shut the fuck up. Who cares? If you want to make something realistic, go for it, Oh, he's sweating profusely. Hang on. Again, it's a fucking movie, dude. Real life is boring. If you want to do something realistic, go make a documentary and tell the truth. But, do your best to tell the truth. But again, if you need to take artistic license, do it. Or if you're going to be realistic, do it entertainingly, like Interstellar, and show things on film for the first time that won't be discovered in real life for several years. But I'm just sitting on my high horse over here. I don't know what you guys are doing. Hard on. Sexual innuendo. Faceless enemy pilot. Would if you were any military personnel with a dog tag, would you really have your call sign on there, or would you have your real name? Because I think I would want my real name, to be honest with you. Sweating profusely. Faceless enemy pilot. Even with these, fake planes like that, clearly that one there was on fire and spinning, or even when Maverick's plane was in a flat spin earlier, even when it's, miniatures like that, they do such a fucking good job it really lets you feel that it's real. You know, even though I bashed it earlier, the argument for practical effects versus CGI or anything like that, like, there is something to say about practical effects, but to stand on your high horse about, oh, there's, you know, it's a... Not only does it shit in the face of computer artists, like, but sometimes, like, that's where things are going, so... And it's safer and sometimes looks better, not always. And I think that movies like, Faceless Enemy Pilot, Jurassic Park's a good example where sweating profusely, still sweating profusely. The reason why I think Jurassic Park holds up so well in terms of sweating profusely, you know how awesome those effects look, even though it was fucking 30 years ago, is like that uncanny valley. So when you have a Faceless Pilot, something to compare it to, and comparing Jurassic Park to Jurassic World, for example, like where there's, you know, Jurassic Park uses puppets and practical effects like that, if you will, and computer generated imagery. You have that comparison, so your brain and your eyeballs are better able to compare the two and say that, yeah, wow, that fucking T-Rex is actually there. Whereas Jurassic World, even though those images are fantastic, like there's no, that uncanny valley is distinctive. Like you're never like, oh no, that's real. Like you need a good mix. You can't just have 100% one way or the maybe not one way or the other, but 100% CGI, because your brain needs to compare the two and bridge that gap, if you will. And why does he carry the dog tags? Like, why would you? I don't know. I got sidetracked. And I don't know where I'm going with this, but I think the new one too has a lot of practical jet effects where there's actual jets flying around, and then obvious computer generated stuff, but you have to have, I think, a good mix of the both. So landing on one side or the other, I think, is, you have to ride a middle line in that respect to movies and things like that. Sweating profusely. Anyway, it's like a long tangent where I don't know where I was going, but I think you got the gist. At least I hope you got the gist. I sound fine to myself. Whether I'm rambling or not is a different story. Faceless Enemy Pilot. You know, in terms of modern day dogfighting, it'll be interesting to see, like, if we're ever in a large scale global conflict again, we haven't really been in one since World War II. Maybe we're coming up on one. Who knows? Hopefully not. But it's so interesting, and this movie touches on it a little bit. They stopped training for it because it wasn't necessary, and now planes are so fucking fast. So like modern day dogfighting, like and naval war or air warfare like this, like it's crazy how they're able to just zero in on people and how they're not just flying past each other at 1,000 miles an hour and faceless enemy pilot. So I think that's an interesting concept and something that happened 35 years ago. And now, again, we're kind of coming up on again, unfortunately. Faceless enemy pilot. That was a real missile, by the way. The Navy only allowed 2 actual missile fires during this, and they filmed the shit out of it and reused it, which makes it look really cool. Sweating profusely, I think. Faceless enemy pilot. Faceless enemy pilot. Faceless enemy pilot. Faceless enemy pilot. Oh, he did the stare and drive on you again, didn't he? Faceless enemy pilot. Is anybody sweating this thing? It doesn't really look like it. I hope not. Like, how does that guy go from the air traffic control tower at Miramar to the tower on the battleship here? Does he just follow them around? You have to know that this is fucking coming too. It's like, oh, he's already asked me before, and now I've said no, and someone's handing me a coffee. You get a double dose. Oh, he's breaking the rules right there for sure. So that's a drink. They rescue those guys fast too. And why does Maverick's plane say Lieutenant Pete Mitchell Maverick, but then everyone else just says Iceman and Slider? It's funny too, like clearly they're on a battleship. It's 1986. They actually went to places like this, and the actor spent days there before. And the guy who plays Slider actually got kicked off of the fucking aircraft carrier because he was just being a dickhead. And fun fact, Val Kilmer did not want to say this line right here. But you're still dangerous. You probably literally shouldn't be flying because you don't ever follow the rules. But you can watch the guy right here that plays Slider too. Like, he's just kind of being his own guy. Like, yeah, fuck yeah, dude. Look at me. I'm in front. But they kicked him off like a few days early. Another fun fact right here too. When he's about to chuck these dog tags, the aircraft carrier was going in the wrong direction, and Tony Scott wanted them to flip it around, and they were like, nah, it's going to cost us a lot of money. So he apparently paid them with his own money to turn around so he could get the shot that he wanted. And why does Goose have a locker on here? He's already dead. Rest in peace, Goose, but I'm sorry, you shouldn't have your own locker on an aircraft carrier that you weren't stationed on. I bet that line will play in the Top Gun Maverick. Is that the same bar from before? I mean, it looks totally different if you go there now. Like we sat outside, but it's still tight on the inside, but I encourage you to check it out because it's always fun to go to places like that where movies have been shot. I guess she does show up one more time. But again, their relationship is superfluous. Like, I don't know. It's not necessary to the story, but whatever. That's what people want to see, I guess. I guess this is song number 3. Like, there's only 3 songs in this. And the old school Who Played Who. Sweating profusely, though. You gotta take a drink. In terms of 80s music scores, this is pretty legit. But I'm going to add an unofficial rule to every episode. Whenever the movie's over, whatever beer you have left or beverage, whatever you're drinking, you have to finish. So I have a little bit left, so here we go. All right, guys. That does it for the Top Gun episode. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you were listening to this while you were watching the movie, so it acts like a drunken audio commentary. If you want to listen to it in your car, that's great. I appreciate it. Much love. But there will be a lot of blank and dead air spots because I can only say so much during 2.5 hours, whatever the movie happens to be. So again, I appreciate you listening to it however you do. We'll be on iTunes and Spotify probably, and then YouTube. I do have an Instagram. It's Buzzworthy Pod. I believe you can follow on there and see what's coming up, and then you can see the rules as well. I'll post those on there as things come. It is Buzzworthy Pod. You please follow me on there. I don't have Twitter anymore because that's a garbage fire, and Facebook I don't really go on anymore, even though it's probably a good platform to get the show out there and everything. But you can follow me on Letterboxd. I don't really know how to follow people on there. Do you have a username? I think my username on there is red6 with 2 X's. You can usually see what I'm up to or what's coming up, and listen to the show. We'll be up on YouTube as well. If you don't listen to the major podcasting platforms, if you found us on YouTube or anything like that and you're like, hey, I listened to this platform and you're not on there, let me know so I can add the show on there. There's so many out there now. I wish there was just one universal thing you could do and then every platform populates to that, but I don't know if there is. I'm on Podbean. I use Podbean, and I don't know if it does everything yet, but I'll do my best. And you can find the original show if you want, Admit 1, on YouTube as well. It's not on Apple or anymore because I didn't want to continue to pay for that, but you can look up the show that way. And I will I don't know, probably a month or so before I get another episode out, but you can, look out for that way. I'll keep everyone updated, of course, when things are moving along. So I thank you for listening and hopefully playing along, because that's really, it's going to be, I think the best way to listen to the show is if you play along. So, thank you. That's all I can say. So that is for now. And the credits are just finishing up right now. So, that's a wrap. And, cheers. Until next time.
I work for Kaiser Soze.
Here's the fucking money, shit!